Hi, my name is Mary Carreón, and I'm the editor-in-chief of DoubleBlind magazine. And today we're going to talk about how to stay safe and what to look for when working with a psychedelic guide. I just want to mention before I dive into some psychedelic safety flags is that there's an excellent resource online, and it's called epicpsychedelic.com, where you can find an entire long, detailed resource of the safety tips and also what to look for and just good information to determine whether or not someone is a safe practitioner to work with. Okay, so there are a number of green flags and a number of red flags to determine whether or not someone is safe to work with. And there's a lot of very easy ones. Some of them might seem like very obvious, but when you're working with someone and engaging with someone, especially entering into a power dynamic with someone, which that is essentially what happens the second you start engaging with someone who is facilitating a psychedelic to you, whether or not you have taken it yet or not, you are still engaging in a power dynamic with someone. And sometimes it can be difficult to see. So that's why it's important to just refresh your memory on what is safe, what is not, what is kind of in the middle, and it will help you determine whether or not this person is good to work with for you. So some green flags around consent and boundaries are whether a facilitator discusses boundaries and consent with participants before anything else and consistently maintains their agreements. So that's a person who is solid. That's a person who is going to discuss boundaries with you upfront, whether you want to be touched, whether you don't want to be touched, whether or not you want to be spoken to, even how all of it is going to go down in terms of their relationship to you and what they also expect from you as a participant. It should not be, this is how it's going to go. It actually should be more of a conversation of what are you comfortable with? Also, have you done this before? What is your experience with psychedelics? And also, there should be a vast intake form as well that gets much information from you, not just your name, not just where you're from, not just whether or not you are an experienced individual, but why you were there, what type of experiences you are looking for, and also, again, with why you were there, discussing your traumatic experiences and looking to understand that part about you so they know what to expect in this experience with you. You want someone who is also going to understand that even if you say upfront that, yes, it's okay to take more of said substance during the middle of your ceremony or your session, that if you say no, you decide in that session that you actually don't want to do anymore, they're not going to be pressuring you. And that should be discussed upfront. And if that's not discussed upfront, things can start getting a little bit hairy or weird in a psychedelic ceremony. Not all facilitators are going to have your best interest in that moment. Sometimes they think that if you take more, you're going to have a better experience, which is not always true, or a more healing experience. Again, not always true. And in worst cases, someone could be doing this for predatory reasons. You also want someone who is not going to be speaking in jargon to you. You want someone who is going to be speaking to you in terms that you understand and in a language that you understand and in a way that is meaningful to your just complete comprehension of the entire experience before heading into your session. You also want to work with a practitioner who is respectful of your cosmology, who is respectful of your beliefs, and is also not going to push their beliefs onto you, particularly in a ceremony or session. If they start kind of doing that already at the beginning, telling you what they believe, you can you understand what you're going to be in for in a psychedelic experience, and it's probably going to be one that is going to be uncomfortable for you. Unless, of course, you and that person share the same beliefs, then it probably won't be that bad. But at the same time, do you really want to be swimming around in someone's ideologies during your psychedelic experience when maybe you are trying to work through trauma or work through a breakup or work through something in your life that you are seeking you are seeking this type of therapy for. Another thing you want to look for is someone who is empowering you to ask questions. If your facilitator or someone you are thinking about working with starts getting angry at you or starts getting pushy or starts getting kind of cagey when you start asking questions, understand that that's problematic. They should not be doing that to you. And that is a huge red flag. That's one of those types of red flags that you should stop the conversation immediately and just leave, because from there on out, it's going to be them trying to control the experience and potentially trying to manipulate a outcome for you, which isn't what this is about. You are your own healer in the sense of you are in control of your own experience and you're there for a reason. And that should be ultimately why you are showing up, and not somebody else trying to tell you what you should be experiencing. If you need to cry, if you need to scream, if you need to roll around on the floor, you shouldn't have anybody telling you either no or telling you what it's supposed to look like or trying to guide you in any kind of way. You need to be able to express and deal with everything that is coming up in order for your most beneficial healing. You also want to work with a practitioner who is okay with you disagreeing. Again, this goes back to exactly what we were just talking about in terms of them empowering you to ask questions. If you disagree with something that they say, or you think that you understand a better way of doing something for you that ultimately honors and is for your greater healing, and you express that to them, and again, they start getting defensive or just any version of weird to you, and it starts making you feel weird, pay attention to your gut. This is very important. You need to understand that this isn't the person to work with. You want someone who is going to calmly, compassionately engage with you in a conversation, whether or not they agree with what you're saying or not. You want someone who's emotionally mature enough to engage and navigate in conversation with you. Another green flag is a facilitator who responds to issues due to systemic injustices and disparities by providing a sliding scale or doing pro bono services. This is a huge topic, and of course, many of you know this, that the topic of money in conjunction with psychedelics and ceremony is difficult. On one hand, of course, people do have to make a living out here, but charging upwards of $6,000 to sit in an ayahuasca ceremony is not helpful for anyone, really. And unfortunately, that is the world that we live in today. And we all know the places you can go and that charge that much money. And many people who are making a comfortable living off of this type of business model. However, that's not necessarily something that many people can afford. And at the end of the day, healing shouldn't come with such a high cost. Discussing financial matters with your facilitator is important, because seeing how they respond to whether or not you can afford their services, and seeing if they have a sliding scale, and seeing if they do offer services pro bono, or maybe there's another type of exchange. Maybe you can help them in the future with something. Maybe you can, I'm not sure, organize their client list. I'm not sure. There's some type of work probably that one could be able to do in order to do a proper helpful exchange. And it can exist outside of a monetary dynamic. So I say this because if your facilitator starts getting a little bit weird again around the finances of your ceremony or your session with them, that's another red flag and something to look out for. Also, financial abuses are a major issue that happen in the underground with facilitators across the board, whether they are ceremony facilitators, whether they are therapeutic facilitators, it doesn't matter. Financial abuses are a big thing. So look out for that and make sure that you are smart and taking care of yourself financially. And now for some red flags. If a facilitator conducts no intake whatsoever, red flag. If a facilitator does not offer preparatory sessions with their participants, also red flag. If a facilitator refuses to provide information or claims ignorance regarding the sources of the substance, purity or test results, or the dosage, and they say that you should just trust them, Red flag. Red flag. You need to know what you're putting in your body. If you have questions about it, they should be able to answer. It's another red flag if your facilitator disregards privacy and confidentiality in text and or spoken conversation. Again, huge red flag. What is the subtext of all underground sessions ultimately is that, especially since we are bringing this into the medical model, we are bringing psychedelic therapy into the medical model, HIPAA. HIPAA and your health privacy is vital to these experiences, even in group sessions. So the rule here is if your health, anything regarding your health, your mental health, your physical health, anything, or any type of information that was taken from some type of intake form, then all of a sudden is getting waved out, like your laundry is getting aired out for everyone to know. Huge red flag, and also not a good look for the entire movement as we are bringing this into the mainstream. The biggest and most obvious red flag is if your facilitator starts making moves on you, bringing the dynamic into a sexual arena. Absolutely not. Zero chance. Red flag. Hit the eject button. You're out of there. Another red flag is if you start noticing or seeing cult-like dynamics. If they are starting to show that they have multiple partners in the group that you are in, if they don't let you leave, if they are trying to make you stay, if they are ultimately trying to power trip on you in a way that is extremely uncomfortable. Almost all power trips are extremely uncomfortable. So yeah, usually we know when they are going down. We know what's going on. And ultimately, if your safety, you realize, is in jeopardy, again, this is not a safe person to work with. If you are heading into a ceremony or a session with someone who maybe lives on a commune, which there's nothing wrong with that, but just keep your wits about you. Understand what your role is, that you are in and then you are out. And if you are not able to communicate your safety and what you want, whether that's to stay or to leave, then again, don't go. This isn't a safe place for you. Another very obvious red flag for a facilitator is if you do research on them and you see bad stuff online. You check them out on social media and you quickly come upon angry comments, angry posters, or people in the comments saying transgressions have happened. The algorithm will feed it to you if you start looking for that information and it's there. So there's that. Also on Google, a lot of times there are even stories about people stories in the media about facilitators who are still serving today. You can find these stories and it's worth it to do the proper research, search their name on Reddit, search their name again on Google, search their name on TikTok, search their name on Instagram, Facebook, the whole thing, because it's worth it to see if this person is safe and what is being said about them. Even if there is the slightest possibility of someone not being safe or culty dynamics or power tripping dynamics or being just someone who isn't safe in ceremony, don't risk it. Put yourself first. Put your body, your heart, your mind, your soul, your brain, your psyche, everything first, because it's not worth it. If what you are looking for is just to take the substance, also don't risk it with a facilitator who isn't going to be there for you and is ultimately going to cause harm. I think one of the best things that you can do before heading into an experience with a facilitator and in a psychedelic session is to listen to your gut. Is to absolutely listen to your gut. Also, the best recommendations come from people who have worked with them already. If they are coming recommended word of mouth by one of your best friends or by a colleague or someone that you work with or a family member or someone who can vouch for them, then you know that there's the likelihood of being safe is a lot higher and having a good experience is a lot higher. But again, still, even in those dynamics, it's better to trust your gut, talk to them beforehand, and not just assume that it's going to be a safe experience, because everyone is different. Everyone has different needs, and we are all very unique individuals with a unique chemical makeup and unique stardust in our bodies heading into these experiences. So everything is going to be different than our friends or our family members or even strangers online. So it's best to always do your research. If you are interested in learning more about psychedelic safety flags and learning what makes a green flag, what makes a red flag, what makes yellow flags and orange flags, you can head over to epicpsychedelic.com or go to psychedelicsafetyflags.com. If you like this video, we have a lot more on our channel, and don't forget to like and subscribe.